Bennett Brothers podcast for the Marvel's Luke Cage television series on Netflix, Part 1, Episodes 1 through 6. I'm Jerry Bennett.
And I'm Joel Bennett. Thank you for joining us this day, evening, whatever time it is you are listening to us. For those of you joining us for the first time, we are a podcast dedicated to everything Marvel Cinematic Universe, specifically in this podcast, like Jerry said, the Luke Cage television show on Netflix. If you've listened to us before, we've done this for the Daredevil seasons and also Jessica Jones, where we broke it up into parts and kind of went over the episodes, reviewed them, talked about Easter eggs and things we liked, things we didn't like, continuity, all sorts of stuff. We don't go as in-depth as our normal podcast, which is on the Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. television show on ABC, which you can check us out on iTunes,
On the internet.
On the internet. All the places you can pick up podcasts at.
As well as the movies, usually in the Marvel Universe or Star Wars or some of the DC movies, which we go into depth. But on a show like this with Netflix, because they're released all at once, we know we're not going to be able to do all 13 episodes individually.
You don't want us to do all 13 episodes.
No, we found that
no
this
one's
works
told us
best
they
for
want
us.
that, so we're doing this way, and it seems that people enjoy this way. So we are going to continue to do it this way unless we hear a
otherwise.
Cry from the masses to do otherwise.
Yes, you are able to contact us on Facebook. We're looking for feedback there. Our Gmail account, which is BennettBrothersPodcast@gmail.com, or on Twitter @BennettBrosPod. That is the best place to give us any feedback, good or bad, letting us know what you think of the podcast, if you agree with our thoughts or you don't, or you have your own, which is probably something that's available.
People have thoughts?
Yes, I know.
Wow.
And in this particular case, we're going to talk about episodes 1 through 6 only. We will not go any farther. I haven't watched anything beyond
I haven't
this.
either. I'm up to 6.
I just finished 6. We wanted to get something out for you guys in between S.H.I.E.L.D. episodes because we had a down week. Thank you for that. That was helpful. Don't know when episode 2 of this will come out, probably within the next 2 weeks or so. But we're going to stay with 1 through 6. We will not spoil anything beyond that
because
we don't know anything. Although I kind of know one thing because the
you
internet.
Spoiled yourself.
It was a half a second. I was turning past something. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And bling, blong, dead. You internet. This is where I would beep out all the cursing that I was very upset about. Yes, Luke Cage dies. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know that. Or does he?
In episode 7, he dies.
What?
Interesting. He actually has a son who's also named Luke Cage, ironically.
Oh, that would. Yeah, hello, Nick Fury. So as we go through each of these 6 episodes, we'll spend a little bit of time talking about what happened in them and our thoughts on them. Speaking of thoughts, Joel, what are your thoughts on this show halfway through?
Well, interesting. So to preface this, I will still say that Daredevil Season 2 is by far, I think, my favorite thing that Marvel has done. Although Captain America Civil War, those two things together, I think they're 1A in one. So it's hard for me to parse which one I like better because Daredevil was so engrossing and kept me busy for many evenings, and I loved it so much, versus Captain America Civil War was just everything you ever wanted in a superhero film, in my opinion. That being said...
Sounds like a Judy Blume now.
I am enjoying this Luke Cage, although it's been a slow burn for me. When it first started, the first episode, I was like, I don't know if I'm liking this right now. I got done with that first episode, and I was like, this is not the show I want to be watching for the next 12 hours after this. Second episode, a little better, but still felt the same way. Now I'm 6 episodes in. I like it. I think it's not, and who knows where it's going to go. It might go better. It might change my mind, but right now it is definitely the last one on the Netflix series scale.
Okay.
It's probably the last one on the TV show scale for me right now.
Interesting.
I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter, I enjoy those more. Maybe because they're more typical superhero things. Well, Agent Carter's not superhero thing. It's more of a noir.
Done.
And it's done.
Other than she's doing a voice over the character for the animated Spider-Man show.
But right now, that's where I stand. Maybe that'll change coming up. And I like Luke Cage. I collected the comics for a little while. I don't collect too many comics.
Of the few he collected.
I collected
and
Luke
some
Cage.
Daredevil, too.
Did Luke Cage and Daredevil. And then all of the Image comics for a while. So.
Oh, those have gone up in value, too. They're huge. Can I get some of those Brigade issues?
I was just looking up Brigade online. Actually, they got some new stuff coming out for Brigade coming out here.
God.
I know. It's crazy. Image. Still doing their thing. So
wow.
we just lost a ton of listeners because they're like, wow, he doesn't know anything.
Welcome to the Image podcast.
Hi, Rob Liefeld. How are you? So, my opinion right now is I enjoy it. I love what they're trying to do. The style is awesome. I don't know if the show is necessarily the show that I want to watch, though. I mean, I do want to watch it.
We'll get into some reasons.
So, well, Jerry, what do you think? Or what are you thinking?
What am I thinking? My background with Luke Cage is, of all the comic books I read, and there are a lot, I was not a big Luke Cage or Heroes for Hire or Power Man and Iron Fist reader. I had read them occasionally here and there. But once the character of Luke Cage was brought into the Avengers about 15 years ago, 14 years ago, somewhere in there, I read a lot of Luke Cage. But that's not necessarily the character who he is now in this TV series. And it's not the 70s blaxploitation created character who was very different. The character has evolved over the last 40 years, as he should. So I am familiar with the character as he stands now in that universe and sparse throughout. So my connection was to this character was not as deep as, say, Daredevil or even Iron Fist or Jessica Jones. What am I thinking about these 6 episodes? It's similar to your opinion. Shock. And from what little I've read online is it's slow, maybe a little too slow. And that I've heard that complaint sometimes with the Netflix shows. Like Daredevil should be only 8 episodes or Jessica Jones 8 episodes. And there's some validity here and there with that, although I do love those shows. And I did love Daredevil season 2, probably the most out of the Netflix shows, which is I've read and listened to people saying that they didn't like that as much, which I think is insane.
Crazy.
Insane. This is good. It's getting better, but I was, getting critical. Like, why? And I heard maybe because of the director, he's learning some pacing. When I mean the director, I mean the showrunner of drawing stuff out. Again, we talked about spoilers. But when the character Pops buys it in the 2nd episode, I was like, yes, let's move forward. Let's get out of the barbershop. And then when they're like 5 and 6, they're like, we got to set the barbershop up. I'm like, no, not the barbershop. Not the barbershop. I don't, nothing's wrong with what they're doing. They're creating a world. The world is wonderful. The character of Luke Cage, played by Mike Coulter, is rock solid, no pun intended. He is the character. He's grounded every time he's on. I love his character, his emotions, the way he conveys stuff. He's so good at it. I just finished episode 6 not that long ago, and the sequence when he sees Claire in the diner and he finally puts together who she is from Daredevil, and the way he reacts, where he's like, hey, and his facial expression, I was like, man, that was genuine. So it's very similar to how I would say, a little bit of a tangent here, I'm not always a fan of some of the later Doctor Who Peter Capaldi episodes. Story-wise, I had some problems with some of them. Not with him. That character is solid. It's the situation that he's in, or the way that's done. And I think that's very similar here, where he's solid, and the actors are all solid. All of them were on The Wire, HBO show, which I actually just recently finished this year and was phenomenal. And I hate cop shows, hate them, but not that one. That was pretty good. So everything about that is great. We'll get into the points, what I think does work, what I think doesn't work. I know there's some goofiness to it. There's a supercut out there of Cottonmouth laughing on YouTube because he laughs through the whole show.
Nice.
I think that was kind of funny. I didn't watch it, but I've heard about it.
Here's the thing. One of the benefits from Luke Cage was that he got introduced in Jessica Jones. Mm-hmm. So they didn't have to do any sort of introducing to the character. It wasn't like Jessica Jones where I've never heard of Jessica Jones.
I got to give you
before
those
the
books. They're good.
Netflix series. So like Luke Cage has a history and all that, so you should be able to go in and Luke Cage should go right away. And I think that what they run into is the same thing that I hate so often. It's the reluctant hero. I don't want to be a hero. I want to sweep. I don't want to see you sweep. I want to see you be a hero.
I do too.
And
you can have that for a bit.
Yes, exactly.
But 3 episodes?
But it's like
4 episodes?
Be the superhero. Now again, you bring up the Cottonmouth thing, him laughing, that's pretty funny because he does laugh a lot. The one thing the Netflix shows do, they do create really in-depth villains. And right now Cottonmouth is our villain. I know there's a bigger bad villain out there because
Diamondback.
Diamondback, which the show's
These are all
setting up
snake
nicely.
names, which are all characters from the books who I can't remember if these are part of the Serpent Society or if it's just, it's. I don't think they are, but they are tied into that in a way because they're obviously a cottonmouth snake, a diamondback snake.
Shades, get you.
Snakes wear shades.
No, I just threw it out.
I love that.
But I like the characters. I mean, the villains that the Netflix shows create, from Kingpin to the Purple Man,
Punisher,
Electric. Thank you. They're all really well done, and Cottonmouth is really well done. I mean, that scene when the framing of it, just when he when he walks his head forward and he has the Biggie poster on, all he's wearing the crown in the picture.
It's very artistic.
I was stunned by it. I was like, "Look at that!" Now
I was out. Showed that off.
I didn't see it that much, so I didn't pay attention to it because I wasn't.
Everybody in the room I watched it with though did also make this in like, "Oh, that's awesome."
It was really well done. So that moment in itself gives the villain even more like gravitas. Just that you can see it visually. He doesn't have to explain he's explaining stuff, but he doesn't have to if he doesn't want to. So anyways, I like the villains. I like things like that. I just can't handle the reluctant hero thing. It bothers me. We already know what he can do because we saw it in Jessica Jones. So keep moving forward with that. But anywho, let's get into the episodes here. We'll kind of tell you some Easter eggs, things that are going on, kind of give our impressions and our opinions.
Yeah, I think, we'll go into briefly what we think works in an episode, what we think doesn't, and how it affects the overall series and all the series going forward. Take it away, Joel.
The first thing I'm going to mention is something that I'm supposed to mention, apparently to the internet, but all these episode titles are taken from a rapper called Gangstar. Not familiar with his work, but all the titles are titles of his songs.
Wasn't that the villain from Silverhawks?
No, Gangstar?
It seems like a Silverhawks. Lone Star, I don't know.
So the first episode is called Moment of Truth. From what I'm reading, everyone's saying that like the titles actually play a big role in the music plays a big role in each episode.
They have almost every episode, although I noticed in episode 6 I didn't see anybody in that episode.
Okay, well I'm going to bring this up.
We're talking about the fact that they have a singer in each episode, which for me has been about a 50-50 hit. Some of them have really blown me away and some of them have been okay.
Okay, well I'm going to bring this up right now because this is one of my biggest moments, like what's going on. It happened first in a song and then in a line of dialogue. I don't remember, I think it was episode 6 they could even say it.
Okay.
They mention Barack Obama.
They talk about this online. They've explained it.
Have they explained it?
Yes,
what did they say on who? They said something.
Yes, the producers have talked about this.
There wasn't. That must have not been out when I looked around for it.
Again, the guy who's the showrunner, which is Cheo Coker, I believe, who also wrote this episode and several of the episodes. What Joel is referring to is in the Marvel universe, there is a different president who we have seen in Iron Man and Iron Man 3 and in Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Warren Ellis, I believe is his name?
No, Warren Ellis. President Ellis. Warren Ellis is a comic book writer, but
yes.
Ellis, played by the actor whose name has escaped me, but he played Death in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. He was the bad guy in Die Hard 2. Those are great references. Go check them out. So in the Marvel universe, what they've explained was his platform that he ran on was security or being able to deal with stuff because of the incident. And the incident being the first Avengers movie where the aliens attacked. So how they explain all of the Barack Obama references, obviously he's going to be referenced in Harlem just because of the culture and everything. In the Marvel universe, he was president for one term, and then when he would have been elected the second term in our world in 2012, that's when the incident happened, and Ellis ran on that, and now he is president in the Marvel universe from 2012 onward. So, our world's diverted at that point, fictitiously. That's why they can. Obama was a one-term president in the Marvel universe.
I like that. I feel like that. What I feel like is they had that song and the line is mentioned in there and they had it. I bet that was like one of those things that kind of slipped through the cracks.
That's what
and then they went. And then they went.
No,
they
had a reason for it. Somebody did, or they rethought it at the end.
They rethought it at the end and they were like, "This sounds like a good."
Unless there's an episode coming up later where they have Obama on a TV screen, like they're watching him, like he's president right then and there, then that will blow that apart. But I haven't read anything about anybody saying that, so I don't think they contradict themselves.
Well, that's cool. That should then that affects our Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I've seen them referencing Obama in the 6 episodes has been in past tense. Like remember when Obama did this or did that. So
yes.
Yeah, I believe that question is answered.
I just wanted to bring that up right now before I forget about it. Anyways, moving on. Back
I'm
to
glad you
episode
did,
1.
because I would have forgot to mention that I knew about it.
Back to episode 1.
Moment of truth.
We get our introduction to obviously Luke Cage again, who's been around since 1972. Just thought that's the dates. There you go. And we get introduced to a bunch of other characters as we move forward here. We get Pops, who doesn't necessarily have a comic book counterpart, which is fine. Like Jerry mentioned,
he's an ex-gangster, Henry Pop Hunter.
We get introduced to Cottonmouth, who does have a comic book character counterpart. His sister, cousin, I can't remember. The Mariah Dillard, or the Black Mariah, as she eventually becomes.
Yes, played by Alfre Woodard, I believe, who was in Captain America: Civil War, playing a different character. She's the one who tells about her son was killed to Tony Stark at the beginning of Civil War. A lot of people speculated that, oh my God, it's going to finally tie the Netflix films in, which it did not.
Do you know about the character? I mean, it's kind of a minor character.
I mean, that she's actually back in the book. You know what? There's a new Heroes for Hire, or Power Man and Iron Fist. Those are both two terms out right now. And I wasn't reading it. It's getting a lot of acclaim. And then Comixology had a sale on the first 5 issues, so I've actually read the first 2, because normally they're priced insane. So I usually wait for sales, and it was worth it. And I'm 2 issues in, and it's really pretty good. And I believe they brought her back.
Well, Black Mariah, when she was a character when she was introduced early in the Luke Cage Hero for Hire series, in 1973, she was a big woman. So that was her she was a big woman. So, so we get introduced to her. That's an interesting character relationship, because very much for the first couple episodes, it's like she's actually a good person. You feel like she doesn't cross the line. Yeah, she does she's dealing with shady people.
The details.
She's dealing with shady people.
She's focusing on the results.
Yes.
Very selfishly for herself, but she is kind of out there. I can't remember, was it in episode 1 where she's seeing the kids, but then she quickly has her hands clean? Was that in the first episode or second? Which tells you a lot about her there.
But I mean, it's not. I mean, most politicians they wipe their hands after that, because
you shake
a lot of hands.
It was such a distaste.
Yes.
So you have to question her motives.
We also get introduced to Misty Knight.
Yes.
Who's Misty Knight?
Misty Knight is an awesome comic book character who will have big connections in the coming up with Danny Rand Iron Fist. I think she's in the next Iron Fist show, but I'm not positive. But they have confirmed that she will be showing up in the Defenders series. That has been confirmed. The Defenders is an 8-episode series that filming is beginning in a few weeks, which will tie all 4 of our main characters together, not including the Punisher, which is filming right now, which they've also just announced, or they officially announced that Deborah Ann Wool, who plays Karen Page, is actually in the Punisher series.
Oh, nice.
I don't want to do news, but that was kind of important because it's part of the series. So Misty Knight is a character who eventually will have a relationship with Danny Rand. She does in the books. I don't want to spoil anything because I don't know where it happened in the series, but she gets a little more super at some point. I'm going to leave it vague. I don't know how the show's going to do that.
They're acting right now like she has a superpower of being able to look at things and see what goes on. Now, I don't know if that's just
nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know it's not. I think I know where you're going with it.
Yeah, but, and she ties in with another character called Colleen Wing, and I believe they're called the Daughters of the Dragon. I hope I'm not screwing that up. Where they have their own superhero tie-in in books and stuff. So she's not just a comic book character who's like, oh, that's Aunt May. No, she's actually a character like people want to buy her comics. So she's fantastic so far.
Do you think that am I stretching it too far to say that maybe they're trying to hint that she has a superpower through these first 6 episodes, being able to see things as they're like?
I could see that
because they shoot it that way.
That, yes.
You go into her mind and all that, and she can see everything that's going on. I don't know if that's just her being tricky. Intellectual or is it being
in any other world, any other fictional world. I wouldn't have focused on that, but now we were in a world where people have powers.
Yeah.
So yes, maybe you're supposed to interpret that way, and if they give her those powers, that's different, I think, than the books.
Which is totally fine.
If it's not, if it's confusing you, then maybe that is an issue where people are thinking she has powers because of that.
We also get to meet her partner, Raphael. Was it Raphael? Scarf, as they call him.
played by the guy who gets
Frank
killed.
Wallis.
He gets the one who gets shot up in Pulp Fiction. He's the young kid with Jennifer Connelly in the John Hughes-ish movie Career Opportunities. Remember, he gets locked in the Target store overnight. Do you remember that movie?
No, not at
Jennifer
all.
Connelly, she's incredible in that. She's like, oh my God, what are you talking about?
I like Jennifer Connelly. I just never saw that movie.
It's a funny movie. But yeah, he's done a lot of stuff. Yeah, I want to talk about him specifically, obviously, in episode 6, because I thought they did some really great stuff with that. But yeah, he's in this. He's fine.
Getting a character called Shades, which is
Go ahead.
Sons of Anarchy. There he is. It's Theo Rossi. He was what's this character's name in Sons of Anarchy?
I'm not gonna remember. Or if I did, I wouldn't tell you.
Anyways, he's in there, and it's great to see him.
Dude.
It's great to see him back. So he's pretty much playing himself again, which is nice. But Shades is a character from the comics as well.
People are raving
from
about his
1972.
character. I'm like, it's okay so far.
We don't know where he's going. Maybe they're raving later, because right now he is our connection
to the past.
To the past and to the next big bad.
Yes. His motivations are very weird because he comes in, Cottonmouth is very put off by him. Like, what are you doing? He's like, no, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not here. And he spends the whole 5 episodes that he's in. It's like I was trying to figure out his motivation. It was really hard to, I don't know. I haven't gotten it yet.
So, Shades being since we're talking about episode 1 here, we get a reference to Seagate Prison, which we'll talk about in a little bit here, but this is not the first time we've had Seagate Prison in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. For those of you who remember, the Seagate Prison was our setting for the All Hail the King, which was on the Thor DVD about the Mandarin, or at least not the Mandarin. That took place at Seagate Prison.
Which, ironically, that was also the last time we saw Justin Hammer. They did that little bit of a cameo, and Hammer, who was also kind of
Sam
the villain.
Rockwell's
Yes, exactly.
Hammer.
The villain from Iron Man 2, or one of the villains. It's all his weapons that are being referenced in multiple episodes here. Again, these are, I guess you could call them Easter eggs, but they're just connections, and it's wonderful. It keeps that world going. I like that.
Yes. Well, Justin Hammer is a nice villain to bring back. I love the actor Sam Rockwell. I think he's done some great stuff. But Iron Man 2 is one of the poorer of the Marvel Cinematic Universe films, and it would be nice just to have that character come back, because I think it's a waste a little bit to just let him. And
then again in this episode, which was a serviceable first episode, but it wasn't as much action. It wasn't almost any action. It was very little. There's this reference to downtown, and I don't think we have to keep mentioning. Yes, they keep mentioning that there's a hammer, which is referencing Thor, or the big green guy, or the incident. And there are several mentions of either Fisk. I don't know if they mentioned Kingpin at this point, but they have mentioned Fisk. And that was mentioned here, which is reference to the Daredevil 2 episode.
Yeah, because there's no references to the Inhuman outbreak. There's nothing like that. Interestingly enough, there hasn't been any mentions of the Sokovia Accords.
And I don't think they will. And I think here's my question, or here's my response to that. I was wondering, and I've actually read a little bit online, as people are saying, this shows how it's not tied into the Marvel Universe real well, because there's no mention of the Accords, which, if you know from the movie Civil War, which is coming right after Avengers Age of Ultron, it's reference to superhero people having to register their powers. And that's going on big time in S.H.I.E.L.D. as well, with all of the Inhumans. But I noticed in episode 6, jumping a little forward here, when Luke Cage was talking to one of the guys, I can't remember the name, I think it was the guy who plays chess with him all the time, or the chess player, I will say. One of the few surviving people. He's talking about, it's one thing to be ghetto famous or Harlem famous. I think he says ghetto famous, and it's another thing because it talks about playing football. He'd be fine on that. And I think that what that means is, even though we're hearing reference to him on the news in Harlem and in New York, it's famous control. He's on the radio, but it's in a smaller community, as opposed to the big picture, as opposed to like people in LA are talking about that, because clearly no reporters are hanging out asking questions about him. So I think it's famous within a very small world, versus he's not doing something so big that people are taking note of it. And that's how I think you can get around the whole.
Well, they're gonna have to keep doing that with.
I
will see. I don't foresee us doing that with Daredevil or Jessica Jones. They're gonna have to. They're big, but they're not catastrophic.
And again, there's no power representation out of the two of those that the world has seen.
No.
But now we're seeing him representing his powers, and obviously it's going to be, when he's digging through the rubble in that one scene, and he's lifting stuff up. There's people with their camera phones taking pictures of him. So, anything else for episode one?
We get a glimpse of Reva Connors, which she was Luke's wife who died.
Yes,
at Jessica Jones's hands.
I wasn't 100% sure about that, and when we got to episode 3 is the flashback or 4 is the flashback, I had to question. I had to look back at that and go, "Yep, that's the same actress." I wasn't 100% positive when we see her in the flashback, but yeah, that was her. We also get mentions of Power Man, which was great.
Yes.
Pops is using that as a nickname for him, and that's probably as close as we're gonna get.
He also throws in there, "I'm not for hire," which is a line.
Well, I will say just on the last note on this is he is lucky in the same way that Wolverine, as Fox got lucky with the fact that when you take off Wolverine's extremely iconic mask, he looks distinct underneath, that you can go, okay, we can get away with it. The character Power Man is very lucky that he has a name that is just as cool as Power Man. What's your name? Luke Cage. Boom.
Yep. Although not his real name in the series, though.
Yes.
So
Lucas. Last name is Lucas something. Cole Lucas or whatever. Carl Lucas. I'm going to say that and just point at you.
There we go.
Looking at that.
I have no idea.
You've heard the story with that. That's where Nicolas Cage got his name, was from Luke Cage.
Really?
And then he's denied it years later. It was for some other reason, because he realized it was embarrassing saying he was named after a comic. He renamed himself because his last name's like Coppola, because he's one of the Coppolas. I think the fourth one, if they number.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Now that's that's awesome. Get the news here, folks, on Bennett Brothers Podcast. I also want to mention we get to see the Marvel Universe, their network, the WJBP TV, which we have seen in other places as well. So
WJBP
TV, the news network. So
that's a mouthful. That is.
Yeah, but it's there.
Here's one: the CW. How about this one? ABC. You know what would be easier? What's your network? DEF. Why not do that? We're deaf. It would work as Harlem.
Defenders.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I was like Def Jam. Get the crazy stuff right here, folks.
I forgot to mention about Shades. He in the comic books, which I don't think we'll see him here. He has like laser beams that come out of his shades. So
really,
yeah.
Okay,
I'll show you a picture of. I'm showing Jerry a picture of Shades. What he looked like from the comics.
I will now spend 5 minutes describing this picture.
But I doubt we're gonna see him have any super powers. But they may. That would be great if they did.
And again, there's a musical performance in this one, and I'm not going to go through each one of them. Although I want to mention, there was talk that in the final episode of the season, the showrunner was trying to get Prince for the final.
I heard that, yeah.
Obviously, real life came, or maybe it was even before that. They never was able to make that happen.
I mean, I love the music in this show. I think the music
some of
is.
The actual music.
Mm-hmm.
I love the. We'll talk about the title sequence. What do you think of the title sequence?
Nah, I mean, it's okay.
I love the Daredevil title sequence. Mm-hmm. I love the Jessica Jones title sequence. I think this one's pretty good.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's not. Yeah, I love the Daredevil
music
one.
in the show. What do you think of the background music and everything?
It's very much got that 70s.
It does.
Black exploitation film kind of like that sound to it, but modernized, and I dig that.
I like some of it, and some of it's not working for me, and I think they're finding the right balance.
I also would like to mention here that he wears a hoodie, and it has some yellow trim on it to kind of reference his older outfit. Yeah, I mean, I know they put him in a hoodie. I believe they said they wanted to put him in a hoodie to show that all black guys in hoodies are not bad guys, based on our real world circumstances that we have right now. So I thought that was interesting. Obviously, the show has to. It's got to be relevant and current in the ideologies that we have right now in our political landscape, at least in America. But it also has to stay in that fictional world too. So I think they're doing a good job with that. Again, the pacing of it was too slow for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got done. I was like, that's it. But I'm hoping that it is starting to change, and I'm hopefully.
Okay, and I think the last thing I want to say on this first episode, and then we'll keep moving forward. And I think the other episodes will go a little bit faster because this was a lot of setup.
This is a lot of setup.
I was confused a little bit about the whole Chico and the double cross sequence, and I wasn't sure if that double cross that with the whole guns, the action sequence. I don't know if that was. And tell me if I'm wrong. I couldn't tell if Cottonmouth was behind some of that double cross or not. I think by the end I realized he wasn't, but it was very confusing. It was interesting seeing Luke's working from two different jobs and how he had to kind of meet the villain in a certain way. But yeah, that was a very good first episode. But that leads us to our second episode, Code of the Streets. This is where the episode we see Luke is tracking down Chico and trying to put the pieces together of this. And obviously this big episode is the episode where Pops gets killed at the towards the end, which was, the guy was fantastic. He's, again, another actor from The Wire. But I part of me was like, okay, I'm fine with that. What do you want to talk about?
Well, first of all, a little Easter egg in there for those to tie into the Netflix series. We get to see Turk.
Yes.
Turk Barrett. So that was cool seeing him again.
He was in the Daredevil show.
He was also in Jessica Jones, wasn't he?
Maybe.
I think he was in. I think he's been in all three of them.
This is a comic book character. It's tied into Daredevil big time, but this was him basically kind of crossing over for a little bit, and then he says, "I'm getting the hell out of here."
He's in the barber shop. So.
Yeah.
And then the guy who's playing chess, Bobby Fish, who's obviously becoming a more main character. He was in Mr. Robot.
Yes, he was.
So.
Did you get the name there? Playing chess, Bobby Fish.
Bobby Fish. I thought, is he a comic book character? I didn't.
Well, it's Bobby Fischer. It's he's a chess player. That's the connection.
Well, I get that, but I didn't know if he's
Joel, would you just open a book? Would you read? Would you look at the world? Yeah, Turk was there. This, he had some action, not a lot of action. They're building up to the action moment, which I think is more in episode 3, and even that one, it's okay. The sequence when Cottonmouth, we a little bit about Cottonmouth's connection to Chico, or I'm not sorry, to Chico, to Pop and his emotion, and the fact that when he takes out his number 2, the guy who did that in this episode,
Poe or something like that.
My wife was like, oh yeah, that. She's like, that's coming a mile away, and she actually took it as a detriment to the episode, saying like, that's really obvious. And I agree with her. That was
a great death, though.
Yeah, but
the camera work is fantastic.
It was exactly. But there was no surprise with that.
No.
It was telegraphed too much.
Mm-hmm. I would completely agree. You saw it coming from a mile away, and the guy's acting was very much, the writing of the character was like, I did this for you. Like, you're like, yeah, you ain't lasted long.
No.
So I don't have much more to mention about this episode, to be honest. As far as little comic book connections and things like that, it was. It's
the first time we get a little bit of Misty Knight's detective skills, like you were talking about.
Well, is this when we first find out she's a detective, or is that happening? That happened in the first episode.
If we did, it was at the very end.
Because that was kind of a shock to when I was watching. I was like, oh, she's a cop. Interesting.
I'll be honest with you, I forgot she was a cop initially, or if she was a cop. I mean, if she wasn't. If she was in the comic, because I didn't know about it.
She was in the beginning, apparently. She was in the beginning, but then she became a private detective.
She's a PI, which is weird because one of the other shows, Jessica Jones, she's a PI. They're all, private investigators in here. That's what that world is. But she's putting it together. This is where she's basically saying, is he an Asgardian? Does he have superpowers? We're getting a little bit of connection to that.
We're also seeing about the safe house, which is actually not the safe house, but Cottonmouth's
Fort Knox, which is also. It's where Alfred Woodard's characters'
headquarters are, and they're building it up.
Weird, where they put all their eggs in one basket.
They're building it up for. Well, actually, they don't. The plot is very complicated at this point. Where they're. But
you're right.
He has businesses everywhere, and then he starts hitting the businesses, and they take all their money and bring it to Fort Knox to make sure it's in one secure location. This Fort Knox is a project development for low income.
One entrance, one exit.
Which doesn't seem like Fire Code would allow that, but. She has her headquarters there. They're keeping all this money there. And I think this episode ends with him putting the headphones on, getting ready to go in.
Yeah, they did that a little bit with storytelling twice, where they kind of had that set up,
Jessica
and then
Jones,
they went back into it, what was going to happen to get to that
at the start, because he has the guy.
Yes.
The guy puts the gun on the back of his head.
Yeah, so it's setting you up to get you to that point. Maybe that's their way of saying, listen, there's nothing exciting happening for a while, so we got to make you hang out to get to that point.
What pushes him over the edge to actually go after Cottonmouth.
Yes.
And that's the death of Pops. And he goes in, and so that's kind of how that episode ends. It leaves on a little bit of a cliffhanger right there, which they do that a couple times in this show, which is a really good job of it, too. There's a couple cliffhanger moments. I'm like, whoa, that's how you're going to end the episode? All right,
Did you think Pops was going to die this early? Or at all, I should say?
I didn't even think about it. I was happy when it happened, though.
Nothing against the character. You know what?
And I like it. I get it. His character is good for the community. He's always, the swear jar. He's helping out kids. The kids that he's helping out are still turning out to be bad. Like, I get his character, and I get the idea of the barbershop in the community. I've seen the movie Barbershop.
Okay. Congratulations.
I know, right?
Did you watch the what was it, the second or third one?
The third one just came out, Barbershop, and then the hair salon or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever. The beauty shop.
Beauty shop, yeah. No, I mean, I like the culture building, and I do enjoy that. But the character himself is very much he's
impeding our journey to superhero town.
And he's the family connection. How many Pops has 2 kids? Is that 2 kids in real life?
I don't
know. Not real life, but real life in the show.
Only his daughter, one so far. When did he have a daughter?
His daughter was Luke Cage's wife that died.
Was she?
Yeah.
Or did they just call him Pops because of his nickname?
I'm almost positive it was his daughter, and he's like, she brought him. Well, maybe.
I don't think they are.
Well, I know he has one son because his son speaks at his funeral.
Yes. Here's your chance. If you want to get involved in this podcast and give us some feedback, and we're wrong, before we get to the second part of this podcast, let us know.
Yeah.
I don't think she was.
Because
I think he was
Luke
just
mentions to the police, like, "Hey, I'm the closest thing he has to a family," and I thought that meant because he was married to his. I don't know. Maybe
then he
would
have said, "Hey, I'm his son-in-law."
That probably is true. He probably would have said that. Although I gotta just mention the scene real fast.
He's like, "Hey, Pops would."
When the place gets shot up, though, it was a pretty cool scene where people are getting hit all over the place.
When he protected the kid there.
Protected the kid and all that kind of stuff.
That's another kind of thing that watching the previews for this, they show you that sequence very fast in the previews when I was watching them. And not that I studied the preview, like trailer for it, but I'm like, as I'm watching the show, I'm remembering, there's a scene. Oh, there's a guy with a hat getting shot up. Well, Pops, and I remember the scene being slow motion. I'm like, he's not going to live.
He doesn't study it that much. But on a side note, be ready to listen for our Iron Fist trailer podcast that we're going to do when we break it down.
Not a chance.
So we have the end of the scene here where he's going down to Fort Knox, and I believe that's the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Which leads us to episode 3.
Who's gonna take the weight?
Who's gonna take the weight? And this when I first mentioned this, we do get a song in this episode that I really enjoyed. Ain't It a Sin by Charles Bradley, the guy who's got the James Brown thing going on.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
I thought that was a pretty cool song. The energy of the guy on stage was pretty fantastic.
You really get there's several times coming up episodes where multiple characters, Shades and the congresswoman, or not congresswoman, but they're telling Cottonmouth, sell this place, and you can just see the pride he has in this business and his love of it, and it's very evident every time he's watching somebody perform music.
Yeah, Cottonmouth is a bad dude, but he's a Fisk bad dude. Like at the start, Fisk becomes much better as it goes on, but. We get our first big action fight sequence here. Very reminiscent of Daredevil from season 1, the hallway fight sequence.
Another hallway.
Where he's just running around, just using his brute force on everyone. What'd you think? Did you like it? Brings the car door in. You said you didn't like it.
No, I did like it, but I wasn't as impressed as I've been. They're setting bars higher and higher with the movies and the shows. I'm not trying to not do apples to oranges, but. It was cool, but I've seen some pretty good stuff, even on Daredevil. So I was like, okay. Didn't dislike it. Wasn't just jumping on my seat with it yet.
Okay. No, that's fair. They enters to a WuTang Clan song, which does have F words in it, but they don't say the F words in the song, and nor do they swear in the TV show. But they do drop the N word a lot. They do say the S word a lot. So,
do they say the Z word?
Oh, not the Z word.
Or the Y word.
Zebra. Zed.
Yeah. Yeah, we forgot to mention there's a lot of side boobage in the first episode. Like, I was uncomfortably still like,
there was a lot of sex.
Oh, hello.
A lot of sex.
Listen, we can take all the shooting in the heads and stuff, but if we're going to see someone's side boob, we may have a problem.
Anything else about this episode? I'm trying to
No, we're talking about Pop's funeral.
Is this the end where he has the funeral and he has the speech at the end?
No. The speech is in episode 5.
5, okay.
Yeah, that's in 5. Let's see. Mariah is actually called Black Mariah in this episode, and I don't know.
These first 3 episodes blended together.
They did. The fight was cool. Luke's hoodie getting all shot up was very cool, and You know what? Let's talk about this for a second. This was what's really interesting to me in the episodes in the show overall, is in a normal television show, in a movie for that matter, is power is based around guns. Guns are the way you enforce it, from the police side to the gangster side to everything. That's it. Guns or any kind of projectile weapons, if you want, that's where it's. And now we've got a character who's like, your weapons don't work on me. You can maybe overpower me if you put 200 guys on me, maybe. And it adds a different dynamic, and I find that fascinating. In episode 6, Black Mariah, she actually makes comments. She's like, drown him. Does he have gills? Poison him. And that was the first time I thought, like, oh yeah, that is clever. I mean, you'd have to trap him somehow to be able to do that, because he's not just bulletproof. He's super.
Well, we know
strong.
he can be killed because he had the aneurysm in Jessica Jones, where they had to go through.
I think he's getting tougher. I think he's getting harder.
You can also shoot him in the eye, because that's where they put the needle in to inject him with whatever Claire had to inject him with. Yeah, they went through his eye.
Oh, that's right. You lost it.
Oh,
Joel hates that stuff.
Now, needles in the eyes, yeah, not a big fan of that. The close up of the needle. Oh no, thank you. But if you shot him in the eye,
yeah. No, yeah. So I do like that the gangsters have to like, oh, well, what are we gonna do? I mean, and especially after they kill Pops, it's like he's got no connection. They're searching for a connection. In fact, if I was Bobby Fish, I would not want to be seen out with him, because then that's clearly a connection that they can exploit.
Mm-hmm.
But I just enjoy the fact that nope, guns aren't going to do it. You can't just come in and go, we're going to shoot you. That's our enforcement. That's the main antagonistic element in The Sopranos. It's the main antagonistic element in all cop shows, in all gangster shows. I was going to say Game of Thrones, but those are swords, but or dragons. If they had some dragons, that'd be pretty awesome.
I would. Nah, they don't need dragons.
No. So that was episode 3.
Dragon tattoo, maybe.
Nice.
But how did this episode end? Was this the?
Let's see. Oh yeah, this was the. It ends with the rocket launcher.
The rocket launcher.
Which, by the way, I love the name Genghis Khanis. That's fantastic.
That's great.
Yes, and I do, and I think it gets even more if I know the relationship between her and Luke, Connie and Luke. It's like, oh, this is a different side. I like this. His approach. I mean, that sequence, which I think we didn't talk about.
We didn't talk about
where
he fought
the guy
bugs.
punches him in the face and breaks his wrist up
great.
and everything.
That was the only action sequence in the first episode.
Yeah, but that's
how forgettable it was. The hand punching was great effect. Yeah. No, so yeah, the rocket launcher blowing up the building, and then the building coming down on top of it. Because it just blows up the first floor, and then the side of it starts falling down with it and covering them up. I thought it looked fantastic, and I like the idea. I love when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had characters with rocket launchers just recently too, so there's a little bit of a connection. But there's just when villains have rocket launchers and they get crazy like that, it reminds me of the Joker from Batman: The Dark Knight. Yeah. This
is the episode that Chico is also killed by Scarf, which is a point.
Oh, that was a big changer. Yep.
Which brings us to episode 4, Step in the Arena, which, if I look at all 6 episodes, it may be my favorite episode of these first 6.
I would agree.
Although even then I felt it was still slow. I felt this was a slow in spots. These are long episodes too. Some of these episodes are like 55 minutes, which normally on certain TV shows I'm like, oh my God, it goes by fast. But I felt some of the slowness in the prison setup.
Well, speaking of prison setup, this is kind of the origin story here of Luke Cage we're going to get in this episode here. So, apparently this is really faithful to the comic, the Luke Cage Hero for Hire #1. There's a Warden Stewart, who apparently has a son in the comics who becomes a supervillain, Stiletto.
Okay.
There you go.
Nice shoes.
And then there's Billy Bob Rackman. Shades is there. Shades is also there with a guy named, he doesn't have a character name, but he's played by an actor named Thomas Q. Jones. He's credited as playing Comanche, although Comanche's not apparently there was a character named Comanche in the comics who hung out with Shades in the Luke Cage
I don't care.
stories. I know, crazy. Small connection, but there he is.
And so obviously we get Reva in this episode, which is the first time we're seeing her other than a still photograph.
Yes.
And I had to IMDb it and double check. Like, yep, that is her, because she's only in the Jessica Jones show for like 3 episodes, and briefly seen. So I had to put that together, but that was cool.
We also, I should mention, we get introduced to another character called Luke Cage's beard.
That's a big. Which here's the thing: I kept thinking, why is that a big? Why do they do that? But it makes sense.
Time progression.
Well, not even that. It's done so that yes, he's got different hair, but it changes his face so much that's why Shades doesn't recognize him right away, or anybody, because he's supposed to be dead. He looks radically different.
Yes, he does.
Although you can definitely see that his goatee is underneath that fake beard.
Yeah, I'm just saying because it also shows time progression because his throat keeps getting bigger, his beard keeps getting longer, and all that kind of stuff to show how long he's been. So he's basically being used to fight in these underground fight clubs, whatever, beating people.
We find out that he's a cop. He was a cop.
He was a
Something
cop.
bad happened.
Yep.
They keep showing those shots of every time somebody mentions a cop, all they cut to the other inmates looking at him. And it makes me think, oh, are they going to try and get him? But they never really paid off that because he's an imposing-looking guy back then.
He has his friend. I forgot his friend's name. I didn't write that down. Who is with him in jail and who ends up dying.
Does he?
Well, they say he dies. Well, you think he'll be brought back?
I don't know, unless he's Diamondback. I don't know.
That would be a great
He
acting
died off
transformation.
camera. I was surprised that he died off camera. In an episode that could have used maybe a little more action here.
Well, it has a great scene when Cage gets out of solitary. He goes over and grabs the weight and goes over to beat the guy. He's like, "Oh, don't go over there." That wasn't a part of. That wasn't necessarily the same thing, but
all these flashbacks are happening at the same time in present day. He's trying to dig him and Connie out of
the rubble.
Yeah.
So, I really enjoyed this sequence. I like this. It had that. It felt like the 1970s. It felt early. I shouldn't say 1970s, but it had the early kind of feel to it. We get to see how he gets transformed into what he gets transformed into, and he's basically done by an experiment by his ex-wife's or his dead wife's partner or doctor or something like that.
There was another character who played the lawyer on The Wire.
Yes. Yep. Which was a great character. That was a great character. I hated that character so much. But he puts him into because he almost dies because Shades and the other guy almost beat him to death. He almost dies. They put him into this machine that has apparently they've been rumored about, like it's supposed to help you heal people or whatnot.
But he gets in there too long or gets messed up while he's in there.
Well, he gets messed up while he's in there because the prison guard, Billy Bob, he breaks in, tries to seal him in there and all that, and he gets put in there for the wrong reasons for too long. I don't know. You're right.
So when Luke comes out of there, and
I knew it the minute they put the head thing on
the tiara.
The tiara, the minute the headgear goes on him, I'm like, oh, that's his headgear.
A little backstory on Luke Cage was back in the 70s, all the way through probably the early 90s. Luke Cage he had long hair, not long hair, but more hair than he does now. He had a metal tiara. He had 2 metal wristbands. He also had a chain for a belt, and he had essentially an open blouse yellow shirt with a high collar. It seems weird to say blouse, but it's a blouse. I mean, it looks great in the page. It looks silly in real life. For me, because that character hasn't looked like that forever. I mean, even when you bought the comics back in the 90s, he looked different. He doesn't look like that. He had shorter hair. Now he's completely bald and he has a goatee, and they've kept that look for probably the last 17 years.
He did the Captain Sisko transition from Deep Space
Yes,
Nine.
he did. Nice call. Nice call. So yes, I thought it was fantastic. He says "Sweet Christmas," which is his phrase. But I love the fact that they did that. That's the quality of the show. The quality of the show goes, listen, we're going to give this to the fans. We're not going to stay here, but we're going to give you something.
Yes,
that's fine.
He makes the line, I look ridiculous, and then he gets out of it. But yeah, the fact that he went with it was good, and he went with the tiara. I love that's what it's called, the headband, for a very long time.
No, it's a tiara. It's a tiara.
So that was that was one of my favorite parts of the show so far.
Yeah, which takes us into episode 5.
Yeah, so they end up
they get out of the rubble. Yeah,
correct. They get out of the rubble.
Episode 5 titled "Just to Get a Rep."
Just to get a rep.
And over the course of these episodes, what we're seeing is we barely saw Cottonmouth in a position of like the villain before it all comes crumbling down, and it just keeps crumbling down. He was never in a high position the way Kingpin was, Wilson Fisk was. He just keeps getting beaten all through all these episodes. And in this episode, he's still he's trying. It goes back to that whole thing where the guns got taken through this bad deal, and this other gang is involved, and he's trying to keep out the character of Diamondback so that he doesn't come in and take Harlem from. Because this is when Shades basically says, "Listen, you bring Diamondback in, he's taking Harlem from you. You should sell the club," which is weird because at this point, the character of Diamondback is like watching Star Wars Episode 4, and they keep mentioning the Emperor, and you never see the Emperor until the next movie. We're getting all these references to this major villain without seeing him.
Well, they
yet.
did that. They did that with Kingpin and Fisk for Daredevil. They
You're
mentioned
right,
him, and we never got to see him.
But
And
I
we
wanted
finally
to have
got
Star Wars.
I wonder if one of these episodes coming up here is going to be an all Diamondback episode, the way we had the all Fisk episode, to kind of introduce us to Fisk.
Possibly.
Which I would be really interested in seeing. We get Claire for the first time in this episode, which is,
Claire is brought back. She last saw her was in actually Daredevil season 2. She's a character who was in season 1 of Daredevil, season 2 Daredevil, and she was in Jessica Jones for one episode, I believe, at the end there.
Yes, I also want to. This episode kind of starts off with Cottonmouth taking it. He's going around to the people of Harlem and beating them up and stealing their things
and blaming it on Luke Cage.
Yes,
which is clever. I mean, it's like a nice way to until Luke's going out and he's righting the wrongs, which I like that. This all leads up to Pop's funeral at the end, where he's there, and it's weird. It's like, I guess it's not well known that he's the one who did it because people still look up to Cottonmouth, and we kind of hear about that more in episode 6 when she talks about his.
Well, right now it's a drive-by. I mean, at this point, it's not a drive-by, but it's just people shooting up the place, and no one actually saw who did it. He just happens to know that it was him.
Oh yeah, and the bodies disappear because he utilizes that mortuary to get rid of bodies, which is another element that's coming into play in episode 6 when they mention that again.
So this whole he goes through and he rescues things. He stops the people from stealing stuff and all that kind of jazz. They have this end speech here. I totally zoned out through it.
Really, I thought it was fine.
I just don't. I'm like,
I was
like, okay, he's talking.
Yeah,
he's talking.
I don't know if there was. I'm not sure if it was this episode or a previous one where we find out that the other guy who's actually with the captain at the department, I believe he's an IAD, he's also on the payroll, and that surprised me and my kid when we were watching it. We were like, "Oh, that guy's bad too," as well as Stokes is, but
not Stokes. Scarf.
No, Scarf. Stokes. Sniffs.
Stokes.
Snacks.
Stokes is from.
Well, Stokes is this. That's actually Cottonmouth.
Yeah.
So, I'm getting there. So yeah, it goes back to those weapons and everything, which we find out those weapons are Scarf uses him to get the weapons out, but then he realizes he's going to try and get a little bit more money out of Cottonmouth, which is going to backfire badly for him in the next episode. Anything else stand out for you in this episode?
Not in this episode. I thought this was a very weak episode for me. I mean, it's cool to see him going around and like.
I like the reintroduction of Claire, and the fact that they showed her fighting back to get her purse. I thought,
that was great.
That's
that was
just
nice.
enough to establish her, so we realize that she can
fight.
fight.
Interestingly enough, to see her find out, like, hey, what does she want to do with her life? We meet her mother. Like, what does she want to do with her life? She wants to, because they could.
Here's the thing, weird.
Because they mentioned her friend dying in the hospital during the Daredevil 2 when that whole political thing.
A hard scene,
the whole political thing where she got fired because she was like, we can't hide what happened to her, and so they bring that back up. And just kind of to show her, disenfranchisement, disillusionment with the system. And so what she wants to do is kind of help take care of people with special abilities who have.
Yeah, and this is what's really tricky. This character. There's a character in the comic books called the Night Nurse who actually appeared as far back as 1961. Linda Carter, student of nurse or whatever it was.
Carter.
I know. Yeah. Well, this was before even that. And this was who everybody thought she was going to be in Daredevil. And then it turns out, the rumor was that the Marvel movies said, no, we want that character. So that's why the name Claire Temple is not actually from the comic books. There's a different character who is going to be in Doctor Strange, which comes out in a few weeks. I don't know if she's going to be playing the Night Nurse or it's just some sort of combination. Or maybe they just wanted that character because there's other connections to it and they're going to go a different direction with her. But clearly the character of Claire Temple is being groomed or being turned into the Night Nurse in all but name. This episode was very blatant about that. She wants to help these, right now she's the glue for these shows. Turk was in all 3 of them, but she's really the glue.
Oh no, she's definitely the glue. Yeah, she's the one. So yeah, it was. I mean, it's nice to see her, and it's nice to see her back in the show. So You want to talk about episode 6 here?
You don't want to talk about Dapper Dan, the guy who makes his suit, who's a real life tailor from Harlem. That doesn't fascinate you, Dapper Dan?
No.
Yeah, exactly. But he makes suits for LL Cool J and Mike Tyson, and I guess that's important. No.
Anyways, episode 6.
Oh, we do. The last thing we also talk about we see that video of the bullet that he wants to have that would burrow into Luke Cage.
Yes. And then explode.
But it's so expensive.
That Russian video where the guy lets himself get shot and then blows up.
Yeah, that was pretty wild.
More of that. So that weapon comes from Chitauri.
Yes,
Chitauri
from the incident.
Metal or technology, and Diamondback has access to that metal.
And so that's when Shades makes the ultimatums, like either you can pay for it or you can have Diamondback do it for you. But then Diamondback comes in and is going to take Harlem.
Diamondback gets that the weapons and things like that from Justin Hammer. Justin Hammer's weapons got locked up in Iron Man 2, and that's why they're at the prison. I don't know. Maybe I'm making this up, but that's why he has to sign him out of the prison.
Well, did the whole Hammer
evidence
thing?
locker.
Did Hammer fold, or did Justin Hammer? I mean, I didn't hear anywhere that Hammer Industries went under. I don't remember hearing that in the episodes or anything like that. I mean, he went down.
He's in prison.
But that doesn't mean the whole company goes down.
No, that's a good point.
I think they still make this stuff. I think they're military stuff that these guys have gotten access to.
So then what are they signing out of?
That's the ones that were capped at the scene of the first episode when those guys betrayed them. They took the money. They left the weapons. So when the cops got there, those guns were left over. So that's when the cops took those weapons.
Gotcha. And are those weapons? Those aren't the bullet shooting weapons. Those are just regular weapons.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yes.
That clears that up. Nothing to worry about now.
Which brings us to our final episode of this podcast, episode 6, which is titled Suckers Need Bodyguards.
It was good when we said it together.
Was it?
I don't know.
And we had a great opening here. Trish Talk was here. Trish is a character. Actually, it's Patsy Walker, Trish Walker, from Jessica Jones. It was the same actress's voice. We didn't see her on camera. She's also a famous comic book character. Hellcat, which I'm hoping we'll get more of her down the road, but it was great having her tied into that. So it was great.
This episode is kind of it's the end of Scarf, but it gives Scarf a little bit redeeming. I like the episode setup for this because it's like we have to get Scarf, who's dying, who last episode appeared in the barbershop. Correct. It was at the end of the episode where he's at the barbershop bleeding out.
No, it's all this episode.
It's all this
he gets shot this episode.
He gets shot this episode.
It all falls apart in this whole episode for Cottonmouth. Cottonmouth's one mistake of shooting this cop causes all of this to fall apart. It's because of that.
Yes.
This happens. Yes, I agree with you. The character of Scarf, what a brilliant way to have Misty Knight give a little bit of his backstory in 2 moments where she basically says, his son died, which gives you a little bit of sorrow for him, or pity for him, if you will. And the fact that he was always there for her was just enough that we kind of feel for him. I mean, he's a terrible guy. He killed Chico. He's not a good guy at all. And he says it in the episode when he says he's a dirty SOB, but he's not as bad as Cottonmouth. And I thought it was actually very smart storytelling. It's like all of a sudden you kind of like felt for him to stay alive. Because at one point when Luke's got his hand on his throat, it's like, as soon as the guy admits, like, I killed Chico, Luke's going to kill him.
But the guy has all the information on Cottonmouth, which will, can bring Cottonmouth down. So, which is in the floorboards of his apartment, I believe.
That's where they always are.
That's where they always are.
Was there something else we saw recently where there was something in the floorboards?
Yes, maybe.
Probably. Thank you for clarifying.
That's where they always are.
Exactly.
We just said that.
Somebody said it.
So this whole episode, they're trying to get Scarf to New York 1 or whatever it is, the police station headquarters 1, because obviously there's corrupt police stations. They can't bring him to hospital because Cottonmouth is out looking for him.
And we get one of Marvel TV's famous car chase sequences, which
I thought it was pretty good.
It was boring.
I thought when I say pretty good, I thought it was fine. Well,
this episode really felt like a money saver because even that car scene was all sound effects. I was kind of like, it was good for tension wise, I guess, because you're supposed to wonder. I kind of wanted to see it. He punched in through the wall. Kind of wanted to see it. We're told a bunch of cool stuff he does in this episode.
That's true.
We don't really get to see it.
They're driving around in the catering van. Is it a catering van? Yes.
A1 Catering.
They're trying to get there and they get stopped because everyone out in the city is looking for them. They find him anyway. So they chase him down. A bunch of bunch of the guys go in after them. Luke Cage does some fighting.
Meanwhile, Misty Knight is teamed up with Perez, and Perez is the guy who is also bad, and she does the fake phone call to trick him, which was good. In fact, there's that scene where they're fighting with her in the car, and he shoots the gun. The gun shoots out. I thought, because again, things happen to Misty Knight in the comic book, and I thought maybe we would be getting a little bit this episode, but.
And they're not afraid to kill characters from the comic book. At least the Netflix series isn't, because Ben Urich.
Ben Urich. Oh, that was bad.
Great actor.
Yes.
You like that actor now more that you've seen The Wire.
Which one was he? No, he wasn't on The Wire.
Yeah, wasn't he the? We'll talk about it afterwards.
Well, no, the one guy who was on The Wire, who was awesome, the guy who made all the dollhouse furniture, he was in Daredevil. No, he was on Jessica Jones. He was the cop on that one who got killed.
That's what I'm mixing up. Yep.
Yes, the guy on Ben Urich is an actor who's been in a billion things. He may have been on The Wire, but he wasn't one of the regulars. Luther was on The Wire. Boy, welcome to The Wire podcast. 5 seasons.
So how does this episode end again?
Well, again, we've talked about this already. We talked about the great moment where Claire confronts Luke. Kind of a brief mention to Jessica Jones by saying it was his girlfriend. We had that connection there, and she's with him this whole episode. We talked about that earlier. I'm trying to look here too to see if I'm thinking I missed anything.
He goes into confronts Cottonmouth numerous times, which throughout the series so far. But
I guess the character of Scarf is in the comic books.
Yes.
And he gets taken down very similar by Misty in the Shadowland, Blood on the Streets.
I heard he's not dead, though. Well, maybe he is dead.
Yeah. Well, he gets taken down. This basically ends where Cottonmouth gets broken down. There's a whole sequence where Black Mariah is in the house. She conveniently is having a live television interview, which never happens other than for reasons like this. There's never a live interview, but it's gotcha television.
Gotcha.
But it was fine. But it was that took me out a little bit. But they confront her. She knows it's going down. Cottonmouth's going down because there was a scene with him and her earlier where he's like, I love you. It's like, oh, goodbye, Cottonmouth. Goodbye. You're out. You're done. Good stuff. And now it looks like Luke is moving on. He's done all he needs to do. But then we're left with that little bit at the end where the chief comes and tells Misty that they don't want to have the connection because it gives a black eye. Mm-hmm. I guess following the whole Wilson Fisk and all those cops that were taken out, they're not going to do it. They're not going to give a black eye to that, which I don't think affects Cottonmouth. I think Cottonmouth's still going... I don't think he's getting out from this.
Correct.
I don't think so. But it doesn't look like they're going to publicly come out and say this cop is bad, and take them all down. I think they're going to cover that up.
Yes.
Is what I got.
And Shades went away.
He wasn't in this episode at all.
He's like, I'm out. Like, he pieced out, go back to Diamondback, and we'll be seeing him soon, I'm sure. Any predictions other than the one you already know, apparently, which is a spoiler? Any other predictions, you think?
I don't know how much of the character of Diamondback's coming in, but I think that's our main villain for the final 7 episodes. Mm-hmm. No, I don't know where they're going with this at all. I don't know how it's going to tie in with Iron Fist at all. I was hoping that Iron Fist was going to make a cameo in this. I was waiting for a lot of cameos. Spoilers if this comes in the future, I don't know, but back when they were filming this, there was word or shots that they said on the same day they were shooting this that David Tennant was filming a scene, and I don't know if that was somebody got confused, but I was thinking, okay, well, David Tennant's going to show up here in a dream sequence or something, and if he does, then I'll be surprised. But I've not read anything. I've been trying not to get spoiled with stuff, but I was thinking he was going to show up, and if he had, I figured I would have stumbled upon that information.
Maybe we'll get a Kilgrave, maybe we'll get a Daredevil, maybe we'll get Jessica Jones.
I don't think, honestly, I thought we were also going to get a Danny Rand and Iron Fist coming up here. But from what little I've been reading, and I figured in a headline somewhere, a headline would have spoiled that. A headline would have said, Danny Rand's in this episode, or Matt Murdock, or Jessica Jones. And I haven't read that anywhere. So either they're covering it up.
If we get that, you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Because I knew Claire was in this. I think you did too.
Yeah, I mean, well, she's not. But I mean, they could pop.
Yes.
Hey, by the way, I bet you Claire's an Iron Fist as well.
I don't know. I didn't know Trish was going to be in this one. I mean, the voice of Trish was. So I don't know. I'm trying to stay away from that. and hopefully it'll be like, oh my gosh, but I don't think they are.
Can't
now.
wait till Coulson makes an appearance in one of these.
You're gonna have to wait a long time. So 6 episodes in and done, 7 more to go.
You know what? Here's the thing. I didn't. You got spoiled with this, but I remember in Daredevil 2, I did not know Kingpin was coming back, and that was a big shocker. To me.
I did
was
know
like,
that.
hey!
Did I know that?
Yeah, you got spoiled on it.
But I didn't know how much he was gonna be in it.
Yeah, I was like, hey, awesome, this is great. So
I try so hard to stay away from the spoils, and I'm pretty good with this stuff.
Again,
I still don't know.
fast.
Yes, that there is something to that. Seeing it fast. I'm looking forward to the rest of it. I'm still like, oh, it's a little slow. It could be better. I'm hoping it picks up.
I'm not gonna lie, talking about it right now got me more jazzed about it. Maybe it's because we skimmed over all the boring, slow stuff.
We did. We totally did. What do you think at home? Was it boring? Is it not boring? Give us your opinions, because this is one of the few podcasts where you can come back and help us formulate how the last 7 episodes go. Does it build up to where you want? They're going to be filming The Defenders soon. They're going to be filming Jessica Jones season 2 soon. They are filming the Punisher series right now, which they just announced will probably not come out until 2018. It's a long ways away. But we are getting The Defenders next year, and we're getting Jessica Jones season 2 next year, which is ironic because they're filming The Punisher now, and that one's not coming out until after those two. They got a lot of finagling and working around. Their Iron Fist is almost finished filming. In fact, actually, Iron Fist is finished filming. They're in post-production with that now. That'll probably come out first, then Defenders, which we do know they're shooting that in a few weeks. They were at the New York Comic-Con this last weekend, and all 4 of them were up on stage. And the villain of the Defenders was kind of revealed, or at least the actress who was playing them. But we don't know what the villain is. Since we don't know who the villain is, it's kind of fun. We'll say it's going to be Sigourney Weaver. How is she tied in? We don't know yet. There's a lot of speculation. One rumor that I think is probably true is, and she's somehow...
playing Ripley, yeah.
Yes. And then the other rumor, because that one would be Dana Barrett from Ghostbusters.
Oh, good.
And then the other rumor that I would think would be is...
Galaxy Quest?
I think somehow she's going to be tied in that she's Matt Murdock's mother. Because we have yet to meet Matt Murdock's mother, who's still alive in this universe, who's a nun. I think... How is she the villain? There's a lot of ways that could be, but I think maybe she's representing Daredevil's mom. But I have no idea. I have no idea. This is all just way guesses.
Well, so we got that coming up. Also, make sure you check out our feed. We're going to be releasing in the next Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. podcast coming up here. Check us out on Facebook, all the other places that we told you about. And
that's it. Until next, we'll be doing Ghost Rider back in S.H.I.E.L.D. And 2 weeks or so, we'll be finishing up this Luke Cage. I'm Jerry.
I'm Joel. We'll talk to you next time.